Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray. And today I have on a woman who's not only a best-selling author and financial expert, she's also a podcast host and a TEDx speaker and the founder of Pure Abundance Retreats. Let's welcome to the show, Patrina Wisdom. Hi, Patrina. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm so excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. You have such a fabulous name. You must get that all the time. Like, what a wonderful name, Patrina Wisdom. Like, it just walks in the room owning it.
Yeah. And it's funny you would say that too, because it's actually a chosen name. It's not my birth name. And I chose it after one of the defining moments in my life of losing my husband to suicide and finding out I was pregnant with my fourth child the same day, and really being in a position to have to recreate my entire life. And so in that pivotal moment, that kind of moment of crossroad and needing to choose my next path, I no longer resonated with my birth name or my married name, right? I couldn't continue walking around identifying as green. And so I needed to figure out what it was that was going to be true to me, that's going to be aligned and really represent who I am and how I was looking to impact in the world. So that's where wisdom came about. And I rarely tell that story. So there you go. Inside scoop.
I love it. We love that inside scoop. Yes. And I, of course, was going to be asking you about that because, I've come to find out without even realizing it, but because I interview a lot of people now, and I get to learn things about them that I normally probably wouldn't in the real world, that I do have a lot of friends in my circle who have lost people through suicide. And I just can't imagine how difficult that is. I mean, this was your husband of 20 years, but I mean, really, come back this amazing, powerful, empowering woman. And I want to talk about everything that you're doing. We were so fortunate to meet at the Wealthy Women's Summit. I mean, what a perfect place for us to meet, since we're all about empowering women with wealth and investing. And I know you're all about that. And I want to talk about all the cool things that you're doing to raise women up. But let's first tackle that. Like, how did you get over that loss? And, I only ask you because there must be other people listening that have been through this where they've lost people. I know I've also lost friends through suicide. It's just always so shocking. I imagine that initially you must have just been in shock.
Yeah, it's devastating. I believe it's one of the most devastating ways to lose people because of all the unanswered questions. And in my husband's case, it wasn't that he was visibly depressed or diagnosed depressed or anything like that. There were literally no signs that were recognizable to me. I realize now that there's a lot of people that are functioning in their day-to-day life that have not been diagnosed and that do not show signs of being depressed, but we never know what's really going on with people. And this was a man who I fell in love with at 15 years old. Meanwhile, I was always the girl who never wanted to get married or have kids or never dreamed about that white picket fence life.
Right.
And so when it happened, it was literally love at first sight. He didn't even notice me. That's the best part, right? He didn't even notice me. But I'm a Scorpio. So when I want something, I have a tendency to get it. And the next thing you know, we had been together for 12 years. We had created this life together, 2 kids, 2 houses, 2 cars. We weren't married at that time. And kind of looked over at each other one day and was like, well, I guess we should get married, huh? It just makes sense financially. So we shared an incredible life together. I had grown up in a single parent household. So for me, he represented safety. He was a very grounded and structured personality. And I've always been more spiritual, woo-woo, creative artist, free spirit.
Yeah.
So I believe we really balanced each other out. I also had a lot of financial trauma from growing up with a single mom, right? And in my communities, a lot of scarcity, a lot of fear, things of that nature. And that was not innate to me, but the financial piece was so foreign. No one ever talked to me about money. No one ever in my family had really any level of money. There was no success in finance or relationship was kind of the trend in my family of predominantly women. And so when my husband came into my life, it really brought a sense of the security, but also that educational piece and the family piece, because he had two parents that had been together for a very long time. So imagine, you fast forward to January 6th of 2009. At that time, we had 3 children. We were living this beautiful life. He had a financial business that I supported him in. So I was exposed at that point, but I had never actually stepped in and done any of that kind of work. I was my own entrepreneur with my spiritual and creative businesses. And then overnight, he goes missing for 24 hours. And the next morning I get a call that he had committed suicide.
Oh my gosh.
So not only did I lose my husband that day, but I found out that I was pregnant with my 4th child and I was going to be that single mom that I never wanted to be.
Oh my
And it
God.
was also my daughter's 13th birthday. So I was literally hosting a party that day.
Oh my God.
Completely devastating.
Wow.
And it's interesting how life works, because sometimes your greatest pain can also be the catalyst for like everything that you do in purpose in your life. And that's what it was for me. Because in that moment, I realized what a people pleaser I had been, how I had been wearing the mask of Superwoman, how, I had so much like control and just trying to keep everything together and looking pretty, that I actually put my own emotions, my own pain and grief on hold for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And picked up not only my kids, my family's pain, but also picked up the mantle of his financial business and all of the things to keep it all together. And it almost killed me. Almost 2 years later, I had this awakening that it was time to finally sit down and take care of me, now that I had taken care of the family, the kids, and everybody else. So it was devastating, but it was awakening at the same time. And so I do have a level of great gratitude for the tragedy and the trauma.
Right. And that's a great way to look at it. And, I was just having this conversation with someone the other day who grew up with a single mom. And I said, I end up having a lot of women on my show that grew up with a single mom. And I think that really perpetuates women to realize that they don't want to depend on someone else and that they really want to create their own wealth and be independent, and propels them to really, I think, try harder, strive harder. Like, I feel like a lot of successful women come from single mom families.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because for my family, they all had a really beautiful level of success, believe it or not, success / stardom, if you will. I mean, I come from a family of singers, like multi-platinum selling artists, singers.
Oh, wow. How interesting.
That were, on Miami Vice and in movies and like all of these things, models, right? Like, so my whole family has always been very successful. A lot of firsts, first Black this, first Black that, right? And so from the outside looking in, things look so glamorous, but in the back, which I would say for a lot of us, not just women, people, period. In the background, there was just this level of like dysfunction financially and this lack, this scarcity mindset. And so I did notice that at a very young age. I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was, but I had that experience and I made a decision very young that wasn't going to be me. I just didn't know what it looked like. So throughout this whole journey, it was like every time something happened, it was pulling me back into the scarcity. And it's like, no, I'm not supposed to be here, right? How can I fight my way out of this?
Right.
So that's been the journey.
and I love that now, not only did you do that for yourself, but your whole life's work is how do you get other people to rise into abundance?
Yes.
So let's first talk, you're a best-selling author. Let's talk
Yeah.
about what that book is called.
Yes, actually, I have it, of course, right next to me. It's called Motherhood's Not for Punks. And I wrote this book because, again, after my journey, I realized that I had been putting everybody first and keeping myself on the back burner. So that book is all about how do you maintain self-fullness. So moving from selfless mothering, selfless nurturing to self-full mothering and self-full nurturing. We're the longest and the most important relationship we have in our lives. And so we really need to put ourselves first. And when we're happy, I learned everybody else is happy, right? Because
Yeah.
we set the tone of the home.
They always say that saying is, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody
Nobody's happy. Exactly. I say it all the time. And
happy.
so it was a journey, though, to move from feelings of scarcity, feelings of potentially being abandoned or people not liking or loving me, to being able to hold that boundary and within my value and show up in a way where I wasn't over giving, over serving,
Right.
So that really is what that book is about.
I love that. And, so here you have this book out that helps mothers. You did your TED Talk.
Yeah.
From victim to victor. So those women out there who've had tragedies like you or losses like you can rebound from your story. And then one of the things I love the most that you're doing, besides, of course, we'll talk about your podcast also, but you're a financial expert. And so you've taken that financial expertise and you founded the Pure Abundance Retreats. And
Yes.
I really want to talk about that because that's something really unique and sounds like it's a lot of fun. I know you help women, to boost themselves, not only financially, but spiritually and personally. Tell me about those retreats. I understand right now you're doing them in Belize. What
Yes.
a cool location for you to be doing this.
This is my baby. This is literally my life's work. So much so that last January, I burned down like the company I had been running for over 2 decades and started fresh with a new corporation and built everything around my retreats. So the Pure Abundance, the idea of the Pure Abundance retreats, and really everything I do is around the idea that abundance is created from the inside out. It's an inside job. Right? When we think about money, wealth, abundance, we think external. So there's extrinsic motivations, there's intrinsic motivations. How are we creating our wealth? And what does wealth really mean to us? What does abundance mean to us? So these retreats give women the space and the time for themselves and the support to really go deep into that. What does abundance mean to you? What really makes you happy? Who the heck are you even? Or who have you been, right? How are you showing up? And is your life in alignment with the things that you really want? Or are you just living by default? So we take them to Belize for 7 days. We put them in a very curated group of like-minded women from all walks of life. One of the things I love about my retreat is it's very diverse. Backgrounds, cultures, sexual, you name it, all of it, right? And they get to spend this week going deep dive into personal and soul development. They get to do some adventures like going to Mayan temples, cave tubing, zip lining, which kind of pushes boundaries and moves them through some of those fears and scarcity that they might be holding on to. And one of the more important things is the community itself. So we've created a membership model now that supports them before, during, and after the retreat. So within that model, they come to the retreat, they have this beautiful experience, they connect with sisters like-minded that'll support them and cheer them on, but then they get to continue with those ladies. They also get my course, which I don't know if I can say the F word, but it's Un-F Your Money Mindset. So they get the course inside of the community, monthly programming, all kinds of things to support them in continuing along their abundance path. And so I love it because like I told you earlier, I love to overserve and overgive. And it's shot me in the foot a lot of times financially in business, but now having this all-in container to serve the women makes it where it's financially abundant and I get to fully show up as who I am and serve them. So I'm loving it, and I'm excited to just continue to expand it.
Right, right. Okay, great. And I understand like you teach a 6-step system. And
Yes.
so I love that you're building the community and that they can participate before, during, and after. Because like a lot of times you'll go to a retreat and then you're kind of like, well, then what? You get home, you don't know what to do with the tools. So it's really a great comprehensive plan. I also like what you said when you said you reinvented yourself, because I think we do that throughout life. And to say you put closure on one company and started a whole nother because you had a new download, I know I have done that. And I think people should understand it's perfectly okay to shift, restart, and reboot and reignite something new and exciting when you feel that calling. And I don't know a lot of people doing this type of retreat, so I think it's really cool. I'm excited to tell our listeners about it. And how do they find out about the Pure Abundance retreats? Like, is there a website?
Yes. So 2 things. One, the retreat website is pureabundanceretreat.com, because I like to keep things very simple. Pureabundanceretreat.com. But what I want to share is something you said about burning this down, starting this. What's interesting is that when I look at what I've created now, I basically just expanded the container to serve me at the different levels of my journey. So I started off as the fresh start specialist, right? It was all about recreation and moving through transition. Then that evolved into the Badass Bodacious Life Movement, right? So now that you've healed all this trauma and recreated your life, like living fully as your unleashed, unapologetic self, and then now creating this level of pure abundance. So I just want your listeners to know that yes, it's okay to burn things down and start over, go in a different direction, but your past is always going to inform your future, especially the triumphs that you've had. So I love how you stated that, and I just wanted to make sure I said that. So yeah, that's the Pure Abundance retreats.
And then you do a podcast as well. Tell me about that.
So I had a realization about 2.5 years ago that I spent my entire entrepreneurial career, which is more than 2 decades, right? Doing everything alone again, right? Superwoman complex. And so about 2 years ago, I joined an incredible community with Hello 7, We Should All Be Millionaires. And I learned that actually before that, I made the decision that I didn't want to do anything alone. So the Living Room Wisdom podcast is actually a forum for me to spotlight stories of other amazing women that have overcome challenges, trauma, adversity, and turned that into something positive. And they're now out there impacting other women through their businesses and through their initiatives. So not only is it a great way for me to just meet amazing women like you, right, and talk and really get to know each other, but it's women lifting women, right? It's us collaborating. And the same with my retreat. I bring in facilitator experts. So it's never just me, I don't need to be the star. I need to create a container, cultivate that, and bring the right women in the room so that they can uplift humanity. So everything I do is based on those principles.
And tell me the name of the podcast again.
It's Living Room Wisdom.
Living Room Wisdom. Yeah. And you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts.
So you can watch it on YouTube and Spotify. So I always film it in a living room, of course, and we move it around. So we've done Belize, Los Angeles, Miami, Atlanta. So you can watch it that way, or you can listen to it on all of the podcast channels. I can't speak English today.
I usually can't either. Okay, great. Well, we'll be looking for the podcast. Anybody who wants to look up the pureabundanceretreat.com, you could check it out and see if that type of trip would be something that, it's really nice to get away from where you're at to focus on things and be with like-minded people. Such a wonderful opportunity and certainly a dynamic location. Believe. Hello.
They're actually it's a very abundant country, which is why I chose it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So the energy of Belize supports the work that we do in a tremendous way. And a lot of the women that I bring, they're like, oh my God, I have to come back here. A lot of them want to move there. Right. So,
So what happened? Did you go there and say, oh my God, this place is magical, I have to do a retreat here? Is that how it
Yes,
happened?
thank you for asking because it's such a good story. So I've been doing the retreat for 5 years. So 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, my honey and I, we're going to take a trip for our birthdays. He's in December. I'm in November, baby. And so he wants to go someplace I haven't been. I'm a traveler. Okay. So I'm like, all right, well, I haven't been to Belize. We booked the trip. His passport doesn't come in time. And me being the woman that I am, I left him, of course. I was like, I love you, babe. Bye. I'll see you when I get back. And so I spent, I think, a week in Belize, and halfway through my trip, as fate would have it, my girlfriend is like, hey, I saw on social media that you're in Belize. You need to meet my girlfriend. She's out in, can't remember the area right now, but in the jungle. And I was like, I'm on in the Keys. I'm having a great time. I only have a couple of days left of my trip. I don't think it's going to work. It's too far. But Spirit was telling me to go. Yeah. So I spent my last 2 nights at that property, and I've been doing my retreat there for the last 5 years. Literally the next year I booked my first retreat.
Yeah,
so
that always happens, doesn't it? When you almost don't go somewhere, or
yes.
you almost didn't go to an event, and then you end up meeting someone that changes your life or whatever. Yeah, it's so important to listen to that download you get inside yourself that says, hey, you better go, right?
Yeah. And that's literally how I live my life. The book came from doing, listening to the nudges, because I don't really consider myself a writer. But when I tell stories, I guess I'm a storyteller because people love my stories. But yeah, the book, the podcast, literally everything I've done has been inspiration. I say from Spirit, depending on, what you believe. So yeah, it never fails me.
It never fails you. I always say listening to your insides never steers you wrong. Yeah. Well, Patrina Wisdom, I hope everybody looks you up on LinkedIn. I know we're both there, Catherine Gray, Patrina Wisdom. Where else can they find you on social media? And
I am Patrina Wisdom everywhere. I'm Patrina Wisdom everywhere. IG, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I'm on everywhere. Pinterest. So I try to keep things very simple. My name, and we do have the Pure Abundance Retreat Instagram. So specifically, if you wanted to go look at some of the photos and check us out there, you can do that as well at the Pure Abundance Retreat.
Oh, that sounds great. They must be fabulous photos.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It really gives you a feel of the experience. It's transformational. The women who come to the retreat do not leave the same person. And I let them know that before they come. Awesome. These are women who they've been trying to conceive for years, weren't able to conceive, and then within 6 months get pregnant. There's women who are looking for partners.
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to go then. I'm just kidding.
Listen, it's whatever your intention is, okay? But things happen.
You can birth different kinds of babies, right?
Yeah. Businesses, homes, partners, kids. We've done it all. Exactly. We've done it.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing your story. It certainly is a beautiful rebound story and very inspiring. So look up Patrina on any of Patrina Wisdom on any of the social media. Of course, you can find us, Catherine Gray Invest in Her on Instagram, and also She Angel Investors on all the social as well. And some of you know we have a new movie coming out later this year, and it is called Show Her the Money, The Power of Funding Female Founders. And you can find Show Her the Money on Instagram. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And Patrina, thank you so much. Make it a great week, everybody. Remember, if you're looking to launch a business or grow your business, check out our e-course, 6 Ways to Fund Your Business, available at sheangelinvestors.com.